Chapter 4, Master and Slave. Metaphysical desire is eminently contagious. Sometimes it is very hard to detect this quality, for desire follows the most unexpected paths in order to spread from one person to another. It gains support from the obstacles we set in its way, from the indignation it arouses, from the ridicule we try to heap on it. On several occasions, we see the friends of Don Quixote imitate his madness in order to cure him. They rush after him, put on disguises, invent 1,000 different distractions, and gradually reach the same heights of extravagance as the hero. This, for Cervantes, is the moment of reckoning. He pauses a moment and pretends to be astonished at the sight of these doctors who are just as rabid as their patient. We must not conclude, like the Romantics and like all redressers of literary wrongs, that Cervantes has finally decided to confound the, quote, enemies of the ideal, end of quote, and avenge all the insults which he continuously heaps on Don Quixote. One of the arguments supporting the Romantic interpretation is the obvious lack of sympathy Cervantes feels for all who try to cure his hero, since Cervantes is against Don Quixote's sermonizers. He must be for his hero. This is the way our Romantic logic operates. Cervantes is much simpler and at the same time much subtler. Nothing is further from him than the, quote, right and wrong, end of quote, Manichaean concept of the novel. Cervantes quite simply wants to show us that Don Quixote spreads the ontological sickness to those around him. The contagion, which is obvious in the case of Sancho, affects everyone in contact with the hero, and especially those who are shocked or roused to indignation by his madness. The university graduate Samson Carrasco takes up arms as a knight only in order to restore the unfortunate gentleman to his lost health, but he begins to take the game seriously even before Don Quixote unseats him. Quote, I don't think there is anyone more insane than my master, end of quote, Samson's squire remarks. Quote, for in order to restore another knight to his lost senses, he has become insane himself and is off in search of something which, when he finds it, might clout him one on the snout, end of quote. The squire proves a good prophet. Carrasco resents the humiliation suffered at the hands of Don Quixote. Now he cannot lay down his weapons until he has made his triumphant rival bite the dust. This psychological mechanism obviously fascinates Cervantes, and we find more and more examples of it as we read on in the book. Altisidora, the Duchess' young companion, pretends she is in love with Don Quixote, but her anger is real when she finds herself rejected. What can this anger mean but the beginning of desire? The truly diabolical subtlety of the ontological sickness provides the clue to numerous episodes. We can particularly understand why the clumsy imitation of Avellaneda and the success of the first part become a capital theme in the second part of Don Quixote. The ambiguous nature of this success is marvelously typical of Don Quixote. The book's popularity spreads the knight's name and the account of his exploits to the farthest boundaries of the Christian world. The possibilities of contagion multiply. The supreme imitator is imitated. The work denouncing metaphysical desire is enlisted under its banner and becomes its best ally. What would Cervantes say if he could read the delirious interpretations which have appeared one after another since the end of the 18th century? What would we have said about Camiso, Unamuno, or Andre Suarez? And the novelist suggests ironically that when he thinks he is denouncing the ontological sickness, perhaps he too bears some resemblance to all the good Samaritans who rush at Don Quixote's heels along the road of folly. The contagious nature of metaphysical desire is one of the most important points of novelistic revelation. Cervantes brings this out again and again. During his stay in Barcelona, Don Quixote is addressed by an unknown man in these words: "Go to the devil, Don Quixote de la Mancha. You are a madman, and if you were that way for yourself alone and behind the closed doors of your madness, there wouldn't be so much harm. But you have this talent for making anyone who has anything to do with you mad and senseless. And for proof of what I say, you have only to look at the gentlemen who accompany you." Don Quixote is not the only character of Cervantes whose desire is contagious. Anselmo and Lothario provide another example of this strange phenomenon. Lothario's refusal to comply with the crazy demands of his friend is less emphatic and above all less insistent than the character attributed to him and the nature of his relationship with Anselmo would seem to require. Lothario succumbs to a sort of giddiness. This same giddiness leads Velchaninoff to the house of Pavel Pavlovich's fiancée. Here too we expect a firmer refusal, but Velchaninoff accepts the invitation. Like Lothario, he enters into the game of his partner in mediation. Dostoevsky tells us he is the victim of a strange seduction. There is no end to the similarities between the eternal husband and the curious impertinent. Metaphysical desire is always contagious. It becomes even more so as the mediator draws nearer to the hero. Contagion and proximity are, after all, one and the same phenomenon. Internal mediation is present when one catches a nearby desire just as one would catch the plague or cholera, simply by contact with an infected person. Vanity and snobism obviously can flourish only in well-prepared ground at the heart of a previously established vanity or snobism. The nearer the mediator comes, the more extensive are the ravages of mediation. Collective manifestations outweigh individual manifestations. The result of this evolution are infinite and appear only gradually. In the world of internal mediation, the contagion is so widespread that everyone can become his neighbor's mediator without ever understanding the role he is playing. This person who is a mediator without realizing it may himself be incapable of spontaneous desire. Thus, he will be tempted to copy the copy of his own desire. What was for him in the beginning only a whim is now transformed into a violent passion. We all know that every desire redoubles when it is seen to be shared. Two identical but opposite triangles are thus superimposed on each other. Desire circulates between the two rivals more and more quickly. And with every cycle, it increases in intensity like the electric current in a battery which is being charged. We now have a subject mediator and a mediator subject. A model disciple and a disciple model. Each imitates the other while claiming that his own desire is prior and previous. Each looks on the other as an atrociously cruel persecutor. All the relationships are symmetrical. The two partners believe themselves separated by a bottomless abyss, but there is nothing we can say of one which is not equally true of the other. There is a sterile opposition of contraries, which becomes more and more atrocious and empty as the two subjects approach each other and as their desire intensifies.